Awesome. Welcome, everyone. It is Monday night, 7 p.m. Phoenix time. And so what are we doing? We are here for Insights with Alicia, right? It's my favorite thing of the week, connecting with you all. I just absolutely love it. I'm a little sleepy today, so we'll see if I slur my words at all. So what do? We get together every Monday to learn and connect, and I often say things and people want to know more, right? They like hearing from the scientific psychic. There are so many things that I have experienced and that have transformed my life. And I love being able to share these insights with everyone, not just my clients, right? We talk about relationships, our behavior, so many life skills to literally change your life and the tools to support those. And let's not forget about the animals. We talk about them too. For those of you who don't know, I am Alicia Sweezer, owner of Who Knew Healing, and I am an intuitive life coach, animal consultant and communicator, psychic medium, intuitive mentor, and I provide healing and growth opportunities for people and animals. Those of you watching on Facebook, if you'd like to comment, please join us by the Zoom link. And one of the reasons that I love doing Insights with Alicia, besides the fact that I get to connect with you all, is that it gives everyone a place to start creating something new in their life for free. I get to shine the light on things and show a different perspective for how you can create this change for yourself. And then if you choose to continue to grow down your path, you can work with me individually to transform at a deeper and usually quicker pace. Okay. So what are we going to talk about tonight? It's the last night of the clairs, right? We have been doing a 3-week series on the intuitive clairs. The first week we did clairvoyant and clairaudient, which are seeing and hearing. Last week we did claircognizant and clairsentient, which were the knowing and the feeling. And tonight we are going to be doing clairalience, which is the smelling, and clairgustance, which is the tasting one. So what are the clairs, right? They are the ways that we receive information. And I just listed all of the 6 for you. And so our bodies are these amazing sensing organisms. They tell us so much about what is happening in our lives, and they receive and give messages to us all of the time. Here are a few of my own examples. And then I want to share one that came up with a client in the last week where I was like, this is perfect. This is just what we're talking about. So I'm going to, besides my own examples, you're going to get another person's real life example and kind of what it's like to work with me sometimes. So for me, and this is the story here that I'm going to share with you. It ties into the one that the practice that I do with my client that I'm going to tell you about in a minute. So, right, you guys heard me say that when there's a lot of spirits around, humans who haven't crossed over, I get a particular type of anxiety in my chest. It's different than my regular anxiety. And because I judge my anxiety so much, I do with all the work that I've done, I still do sometimes. I never asked my body what it was trying to show me. And so I didn't know the difference for so long. And I used to beat myself up like, oh, it's just because I can't be in a group of people. Oh, it's because I'm an introvert. Like I told myself all of these stories and all of these thoughts and beliefs, none of which were true. If I would have been able to pause and ask the questions, I would have received that information at much sooner time. And I would have had so much more ease and comfort. And so that is one of the things that I was able to learn. The other one is, right, you guys have heard me say that when there are lower vibrational entities or spirits, et cetera, around, I get really nauseous. This helps me know how to help my clients also, because then I know which clearings and which energy processes to run to help them. And so as you guys have heard me say, and I'm going to say it all the time, I'm going to say it constantly. It always comes back to the first step of knowing our own energy. So we know what is ours and what is someone else's. Now there's an episode, another episode of Insights with Alicia that can teach you this. It's called Energy Tools that you must have and will change your life. It is the basic foundational first tool I teach everyone. So I highly recommend it. Okay, so here's a story that I was going to tell you about my client that I was teaching this to. So, and where we get to ask, what is our body trying to show us? So we were working through some things and he talked about, he gets this particular, we called it angst. He's like, I get this particular feeling in my body. He's like, and I can't, it's overwhelming. And I don't know what to do with it. And I make it mean all of these things. And there's a couple of challenges that he works on. One is, body issues. Another one is, what are his preferences for his ideal partner, that sort of thing. And I forget what the third one was. And so this practice that we came up with was that when he gets that particular feeling, is that he has a process now. He's going to ask a set of particular questions that I gave him so that he gets very clear on what his body is telling him at that moment and what that particular feeling is. Because right now he's telling himself that it's because of this, or it's because of that, the girl looks this way, or it's, my own beliefs about my self-worth. Like there's all, like I was saying with my anxiety, right? I thought it was, I couldn't be in a group. I'm an introvert. Like I made up all of these ideas of what I thought that particular anxiety was. And none of them were correct. It was that there was spirits in the room. And so for him, as he starts to practice this, when he gets that feeling now, he's going to walk through his questions and he's going to get his intuitive answers. He's going to check with his body. He's going to go lighter, heavy, right? Yes or no. And now he's going to get really, really clear that when he gets that very particular feeling, what that means. Instead of all of this confusion that he's been in of it means like these 9 things and none of them are true, or one of them is true. And so I was really excited because I was like, this is what I've just been talking about with people about the clairs, and he's an empath. So this is a feeling one. So this is what it looks like. Like, this is just another example of our body is giving us information. And because we interpret something as an emotion, right? We called it angst, which is an emotion. It's not a feeling. But that's what his word for it. He was like, this is what, I'm calling it. I was like, perfect. It's yours. You get to call it whatever you want. But we interpret our feelings so much. And I talk about this every night through this series with the clairs, and I'll say it again tonight. We interpret things as emotions, and they're not always emotions. They're feelings. So that's where I talk about in here. It's really, really important that feelings are the sensations that our body is giving us. Emotions actually come from the thought, right? There's a thought, belief, and then emotion is what ties to that. So there's a difference. And I know in our society, we interchange them. I do it also, but for the intensive purpose of this 3-week series that we're talking about, I want us to be really conscious about our language and pay attention to the difference between emotions and feelings. So it's just, can you tell how excited I am for him? Because this is going to give him so much information, and it's going to provide him with so much relief and so much ease, because once he gathers this, instead of having this anxiety and all of these stories in his head, he's going to go, oh, it means this. Done. You see how easy that is? Instead of staying in the confusion and riding the emotional roller coaster and telling ourselves the story, when we learn to listen to our body and read the energy and ask the questions, it changes that fast. So that was the story I was going to tell you. I was super excited. Okay, where are we? All right, we talked about emotions and feelings. And as I've said, we've talked about the 6 clairs. The goal is not to develop all of them, right? I have 5 of the 6, but this is also, what I do. This is my life's purpose. So if you have one, that is perfect and absolutely complete. The goal is to not develop all of them. If you have them and you choose to do, that's great. Everybody has abilities, but it's not this place of where we get to be a maladaptive overachiever and try and do everything. If you have one, it is perfect and complete. Okay. So as I said, the 2 that we're going to talk about tonight are clairalience, smelling, and clairgustance, tasting. And this was really cool because as I started to research some of this, as I have been telling you guys over the last couple of weeks, I didn't know, I didn't think I had either one of these. And as we get to the clairgustance, when I started doing the research, I was like, oh my God, I do this. I always thought it was my clairsentient, the feeling. So I apparently have part of the tasting one too. I was very surprised. Okay. So what is clairalience, or sometimes it's called I have to say this slowly, clairolfactance. So clairalience is the intuitive ability to smell beyond the range of the physical nose. It is how we can receive information from higher spirits, angels, our spirit guides, the universe, source, God, etc., whatever your language is, and those that have transitioned by smelling. Some examples are smelling cigarette smoke when no one is smoking, or perfume when no one else is around. Also, clairalience and clairgustance are closely linked, which is not, unusual, since our taste and our smell are linked in our body. And through some of the research I did, it did say that clairgustance, the tasting, was linked to clairsentient, the feeling. Okay, so the most common signs of clairalience include, but are not limited to, right? So this is the smelling one. You have a highly developed sense of smell. You smell the signature scent of someone who has transitioned. This is where we are talking about a certain perfume, cigarettes, or someone's favorite flower, or even food. Like, I have talked to people who, like, when their grandma shows up, like, they smell her perfume. You smell things that no one else smells. And you smell things that aren't physically present, something out of place, like smelling fresh cut grass when you're sitting in your office, right? And the window's not open. Something that just doesn't make any sense, is random. And that is how your sense shows up. You have sudden fits of sneezing. Here is where we get to ask questions to determine if it's a message or an allergy attack. And this was so interesting when I read this one, because I've had this happen a few times in like the last 6 weeks. I just sitting on the couch, windows aren't open, and I start sneezing, and I sneeze about 15 times. Like, it's that moment where you're like, is this it? Is this how I go out? Am I going to die? Right? Because you just can't stop sneezing. That's not normal for me. So now that I know that this can be sometimes a clairgustance thing, clairalience, the smelling, when that happens, again, I'm going to ask some questions. So the questions look like, right? What is it that you're trying to show me? What messages are being delivered? That sort of thing. Oh, and someone wrote in the chat that they've had random sneezing lately as well. See? Clairalience, maybe. You experience smells that you don't recognize or can't identify. For some people, this happens when it comes to other people's energies or emotions. So their emotions smell a certain way. I can't imagine that. Like, it's a lot for me to already feel and know and see and hear. Like, I can't imagine smelling people's emotions on top of it. There's a lot of sensations in your body. You can smell sickness in people. I worked with someone a long time ago who talked about this. She said she could smell when someone wasn't feeling well. And all parts of our bodies, all of our organs, they have their own vibration. And people with this ability can smell the difference in those energies and those vibrations. I find that so fascinating. The scientist part of me, like, of course, wants to get in there and gather data and study and do tests. But yeah, that's it. And there was, when I was doing the research, there was a lot of talk about this, of like, that's right. There's a lot of animals, right? Cancer sniffing dogs, dogs that can tell when you're going to have a seizure. And so they are talking about the difference in the energy and vibrations, and dogs are able to do that. So one of the practices that helps with the ability, the clairalience, is a smell journal. Kind of like the picture dictionary for people who are clairvoyant. A smell journal can help with smells you don't recognize, to be able to see the patterns of when, where, with who you are receiving those particular smells. Okay, so those are some of the indications that you may be clairalience. I hope it was super helpful. Okay, so now on to clairgustance. What is clairgustance? It's the intuitive ability to taste substances without putting anything in your mouth. It is how we can receive information from higher spirits, angels, our spirit guides, universe, source, God, right? And those who have transitioned by taste. Now, here's the thing. Everybody always thinks of food automatically when it comes to this. However, the tastes range from yummy to foul, like nasty. It could vary from food to dirt to plastic to chemical tastes, to flowers. It can be anything. And I was like, ooh, yeah, I don't think I'd want that. Like, you imagine walking around and be like, I taste dirt. Who's here? I know that's what it looks like, right? It's not any different than if I hear something and I'm like, oh, who's here? But I'm not going to lie. I don't want to taste dirt. I don't. So some of the common signs of clairgustance include, but are not limited to, you have a strong sense of taste. You may be a food lover, and eating or tasting new things is one of your favorite things. I'm not really that kind of person. I'm kind of vanilla when it comes to my food. You experience tastes randomly when there's nothing in your mouth and you're not eating. Sometimes these tastes can bring a memory or an emotion with them as well. You have a strong emotional connection with taste. Taste has the ability to fill us with all kinds of emotions. When you eat certain foods, do you remember the people who used to make them? I know for me, when I was looking at this, there are certain cookies, and I don't eat or see them very often, but when I eat them, I remember the Christmas when I was little and my mom made like 20 different cookies from the Betty Crocker cookbook. Like the old Betty Crocker cookbook had like, there was a picture and there was like 9, 10, 20 different types of cookies in the picture. And I think it was a Christmas. She made all of them. And I don't remember why, but I was happy as a kid that she did. So when I see some of those cookies and I eat them, like it takes me right back into that day and being in the kitchen and that sort of thing. And so it also displays as a particular taste when you're thinking of a specific person or a specific place. You can taste what other people are eating or have eaten. This can even happen while watching a TV show, and now you're tasting what is being eaten on the show. Now, I would imagine this is different than like, because there's, shows I watch and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. Cause like they made this most amazing food, but I don't think I've really ever tasted it from like the TV show. Like, so that was interesting. How this did happen for me though, I was so amazed is that a couple of weeks ago, I was on the phone talking to a friend and she was sharing about what she'd been doing that day. And she said, I had a sausage egg McMuffin for breakfast. And I interrupted her because I immediately tasted everything and it felt in my body, the whole thing. It was like I had just eaten a sausage egg McMuffin, like my mouth filled with saliva. I felt full. I felt warm. It was this crazy thing. And I was like, this is never, what is this? And I would have thought that was my clairsentient. I would have thought that was a feeling. And, but it's not. Turns out that that's a clairgustance trait. And it was so funny because I don't eat those, like sausage like that, like breakfast, sausage, pork, like it actually makes me very, very sick. So it was such an interesting experience that I could fully taste what a sausage egg McMuffin tastes like. And it was just cracking me up. And she was so kind because we were on the phone and, she was sharing about her day and I totally interrupted. And I was like, oh my God, I'm having this experience. And so it was really, really interesting. You can have a strong sense of smell. Remember, taste and smell are linked. You can have sudden fits of burping. You can have occurrences of dry mouth. You can get food cravings that have no explanations. This one I do get all the time. Once again, I really thought it was a clairsentient trait. I really thought it was a feeling thing, like an empath thing. And it could be both, right? I used to text my friends and ask them like, all right, which one of you is craving chocolate chip cookies? Because like I would be walking around and be like, I need cookies. And I was like, wait a minute, right? And this is where it comes in, knowing your own energy. And I was like, this isn't mine. So I would text them, I'd be like, which one of you bitches is just go eat the cookies? Cause I need this to be gone. And so it was always fun. And, one of them would be like, well, that was me. I'm sorry. So also keeping a taste journal can help with this, just like with the other clairs. Keeping track of patterns of what, where, etc. you are tasting can help you better understand the information that you are receiving. And so these are some of the indications that you may be clairgustant, right? The tasting. I hope you found it super helpful. One of the other things that I wanted to touch upon tonight is I mentioned it I think last week, because it's part of clairsentience, but it's this modality practice. It's not quite a clair, like it didn't have its own category, but it's called psychometry. And I had someone reach out and like, can you talk more about that? So what psychometry is when you can hold objects and then you can feel the vibrations, the energies, and you get intuitive information from holding the objects. So it can be, and I do this a lot, like it's a really good practice. If you ever purchase, like if you buy crystals from a store or anything like that, even your cards, to always clean them when you come home. Because imagine all the people that have picked that up in the store. And every time someone touches it, they leave a little bit of their energy behind. And so it's always just a really good idea to clean your stuff. If you don't know how, there's, new moon, full moon, sun, there's like a ton of techniques on how to clean and charge your crystals and your rocks and any of your tools that your pendulums, your cards, whatever. And it's like also one of the reasons, like, I have cards that I work with and I don't let people touch my cards, right? They're mine. They have just my energy. And so people that do tarot, sometimes they have a separate deck that they do like for business that other people touch. And sometimes when they do it, they're the ones that pull the cards. Like they don't allow the client to touch cards. Each person is different. But my cards are very important to me and they provide a lot of information. And so I don't let anybody touch them. So it's one of these things where if you've ever been, like, if you go into an antique store, or like I said, even if you're picking crystals, like we've all done that, and it's like, okay, which one am I supposed to get? And then you go through like the little basket and you're like, oh, this one, right? That's the reading the energy. And how psychometry can show up is you hold the objects and you get, like, say it's antique furniture, right? You can touch the furniture and however your clairs show up, sight, sound, knowing, etc. You get your intuitive information from that object. And I remember when I was first learning this, I didn't even know it was called psychometry back then. I was like sort of in a group sort of thing, and they partnered us up, and I was sitting with this woman that I didn't know, and she handed me a ring. And all I could feel from the ring is that it was shaking. Like it felt like it was flipping back and forth. And I was like, of course, all the self-doubt pops in, right? Because this was years and years and years ago. And I was like, oh my God, I suck at this, right? Because I didn't get big pictures and I didn't get a lot of words, and all that self-doubt gets in there. And so I told her, I was like, this is all I'm getting. And she was like, okay. And, we go back, get in our circle, and we go around and we get to her, and she's like, well, this is what I gave her. And I said, this is all I felt. I just felt it shaking, and I felt it like flipping back and forth on itself. And I was like that, of course I'm like, oh my God, I'm so thinking I'm so terrible. And then the woman shared, she's like, this is my wedding ring. And she goes, my husband and I are currently trying to decide whether or not we're going to get divorced. Our marriage is in a rocky place, and we are going back and forth on whether to stay together or get divorced. And I was like, oh my God. Right. A very challenging place for her to be in. And it was validating for me. So it's this place of where we really get to, one, like I said, ask questions, because that self-doubt can get in there, especially when you're new. And then it's this place of, we don't know the information until we ask the questions, right? Like here I am thinking I totally sucked at it. I got it wrong, and it was completely accurate. So psychometry can be a lot of fun. It's also, it's a really good practice. Like I said, if you're big into like jewelry or crystals or antique furniture, like anything that may have been either touched by a lot of people or owned by other people. Because like I said, there's always a clearing practice that you want to do, but it's lots of fun too, to just touch things. And people think you're crazy if you're like, no, listen to this crystal, right? Do you feel this? Or even a rock. Like I'm big on rocks. Last time I was hiking, I picked up 2 rocks. I was like, oh, I have to have these rocks. That's why I, when people are like, oh, do you hike? I'm like, I more nature walk, because I'm talking to the trees, the flowers, and, the ground and the planet and rocks and all this kind of stuff, but they all have their own energy. And that's why even going to a place, right? I remember, we're just like, these are all just stories I'm free will and sharing with you tonight. Like I don't even have notes on this stuff. So I'm like, that's why it's all popping in. When I was a teenager, this was the coolest thing. I was like 17. It was 17 before I turned 18. I went to France for a month, and I had a exchange student. And then when I graduated, I went to see her and her family, and we went to Lourdes, right? So it's this part in France where Mother Mary had been seen, and this is really old church. And, it's where you drink the water, and all these miracles have been performed, and that sort of thing. An experience just, you can't even explain. Just hundreds of people on gurneys and lots of nuns, and the priest doing the sermon and the service, and this like 300 old bridge of this church. And you walk in this really old church, and engraved in every stone is a thank you, most of it's in French, merci, merci beaucoup. And then like a date. And these were talking about the miracles that had performed, how families had been helped. And it was this amazing church because, throughout the walls are the stages of Jesus' life, all done in like mosaic tiles. And I would love to see it now, like that sort of experience at 17. I just didn't have the ability, right? 17-year-old consciousness to absorb all that was happening. But what I do remember is every time I touched one of the columns, every time I touched one of the stones that were a thank you, I could feel those people. And you got to remember, back then, I didn't know that I was this psychic and empathic and that sort of stuff. But I remember that church felt amazing and that I didn't want to leave. Churches don't usually feel that way to me, I can tell you. There's usually a lot of entities in church. But that still sticks with me to this day of like, I wish I would have had more time to like spend there and really experience and delve into it. And, but every single stone of every thank you felt different because it had a different family's energy. So that's what psychometry can look like, sort of like on a grander scale in a big area, but also it's not always just something you pick up. Like it could be a building, it could be anything. And psychometry is tied, like I said, to the clairsentience and that sort of thing. So because someone reached out, I wanted to mention that tonight and do a little chat about it. You can Google it. I'm sure there's tons of information on it. It's lots of fun for me. And it's one of the things that I use for clearing and check, like I always check things. And I do it for other people. Like if I do events and, say I do a psychic event and someone comes and they're like, hey, can you check? And I can read it and I can be like, oh, and then I can clear it for them at the moment. Then, it's like, it's all just for you now. And so it has a lot of practical purposes that are really helpful for people who are intuitive. So hope that answered some of the questions that you might have had on psychometry. I know it wasn't on the syllabus for this evening, but I still wanted to talk about it. And people are saying, thank you so much. And they do like, I love that you guys love my stories because who else do I get to tell them to, right? Walking around with all my stories that I love being able to tell them so that other people, if they've had the same experience, they go, oh my God, that's what that is. I thought I was just weird because I touched stuff and then I felt stuff. There's actually a name. So that is awesome. Okay. So for homework, I invite you to take some time, look over, the clairs that we talked about tonight, as well as the other nights. And same thing, this will be in this Wednesday's blog. So don't worry about like, if you wanted to take notes, it'll be in written form. So you'll be able to read it and that sort of thing also. But for homework, take some time. Look this over, spend some time asking some questions, pay attention to the awarenesses that you have, see which ones resonate for you. Because like I said, I would have bet money that I didn't have the taste one because I don't get just the sort of taste things that I talked about, right? Like I don't taste dirt, thank God, or flowers or cookies that, when no one well, okay, I said cookies because my friend cookies. But I don't always get it in my mouth, which I'm very grateful for. So this was super educational for me as well, because I just really didn't think I had this one. And as always, the offer for this week is that if you want to know what your clairs are, send me a DM and I'll do a quick read for free and let you know what I perceive for you. And teaching, as you can tell, right? Teaching intuitive and psychic tools is really one of my absolute favorite things to do as an intuitive mentor. I absolutely love it. So if you recognize yourself in any of these scenarios, and this is something that can move you forward along your journey, then please reach out. I would love to apply for the job to be your guide. And this is the last thing that I want to mention, because this is really, really important, is the responsibility that comes with these abilities. Just because you get an intuitive hit, right, from any of your clairs, doesn't mean you're always supposed to do something with it, especially if it involves someone else. I did another Insights with Alicia about this, gosh, like last summer. It was one of my first episodes, and it's called Important Principles for Intuitive Hits. I highly recommend it, not just because I made it, kidding, but there's some information in there that it's very, very important, because we want to be in alignment with what we are choosing. And there can be consequences when we're irresponsible with our abilities. And so it's just one of those things where if you're developing, and it's so interesting because I remember talking to people who are very developed in their abilities, and they didn't know this part. Like someone else taught them this, and they're like, I didn't know that you weren't supposed to say anything. And for me, it's just, I think I say in that video, I think it's part of just the way I work, and maybe part of my introvertness of like, I always just check and be like, oh, because I can walk down the street and get information on every person. That doesn't mean I'm supposed to deliver all of it, because like your gifts are just always providing information. And so you get to check and be like, oh, am I supposed to know? Oh, okay. And of course, always can they receive it, right? Like there's some steps to this process of what to do with your intuitive hits. So watch that video, listen to the podcast. It's another piece that goes with this, because like I said, we want to be responsible with our abilities, and we want to be choosing things that are in alignment. So hope that was helpful for you all tonight. I know it was a lot of information, went by really, really fast. Can't believe that was 30 minutes. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I had a great time as always. And if there are people you want to share this with, the video will be uploaded to YouTube channel under Alicia Sweezer tonight. Please subscribe, share, like, comment, because that does, I think, especially I was reading recently, like the commenting like kicks it in the YouTube algorithm, and then more people get to see it, because, you know, like I want this information out there that can help people. And the podcast version will be loaded as well tonight. There are links in the event listing for all of this stuff. And you can always find the information on my website, Who Knew Healing. That's new with a K. And thank you as always. Oh my goodness, for everyone who's donated to my cosmic tip jar. It allows me to create more free things that I get to give to people. Anyone feels led to do so. Links are in the event info, multiple options. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, everyone, have a good night. Have a fabulous week. I will see you next Monday. And guess what we're going to talk about next Monday? We're going to talk about spirit guides. Yep, I figured it was very fitting, since we just spent 3 weeks learning and talking about all of the ways that we connect with them. So now we're going to do a little talk about who they are, what they are, how they show up, all the different kinds that there are. So tune in next week, because that's what we're going to talk about. All right, everyone, have a fabulous week. I will see you all next Monday. All right, everyone. Bye.